Good day! In this second video, I will be discussing the second topic, which is the different types of criminal punishment. So, before anything else, first is I need to read my presentation before I gave my word of discussion. So we have 5 different types of criminal punishment. To start off with number 1, we have the incapacitation. Second, the deterrence. Third, the retribution. The fourth is rehabilitation. And lastly, we have the fifth, which is the restoration. So first, let's discuss the incapacitation. So incapacitation seeks to prevent future crime by physically moving criminals away from society. So, from the word incapacitation, it is to incapacitate or to take criminals away from society and put them in jails in order to prevent future crime. This punishment can be traced to ancient times. Terence McTee and Hongler write in Punishment, a comparative historical perspective. Banishment was common penalty in antiquity. So way back before antiquity times, banishment was their form of penalty. So later, it was common for colonizing European countries to ship convicts and undesirables overseas. In modern times, house arrest, incarceration, and the death penalty are all forms of incapacitation. So in these modern times, their way of incapacitation are house arrest, incarceration, and death penalty, which is common on today's generation. Findings by the Bureau of Justice Statistics, or BJS, have brought the effectiveness of this method into question. So according to BJS data, about 2/3 or 67.8% of prisoners released back into society were arrested for a new crime within 3 years, and about 3/4 or 76.6% were arrested within 5 years. So despite these findings of the BJS data, incapacitation is a common form of a punishment in the United States. So now let's proceed with number 2, which is the deterrence. So the goal of deterrence is to persuade citizens and possible offenders or re-offenders to conform to the rules of law. Mithi and Liu explains that 4 types of deterrence are generalized, recognized. Okay. So here are the 4 generalized, recognized of that explains the deterrence. So first is we have number 1. Specific deterrence analyzes how effective punishment is on an individual's further behavior. So it says that punishment is the way to is being effective in for those people or individuals who have a behavior that does not follow the rules and regulations of the law. So they see that punishment is the way to deter criminals. Number 2, we have the general deterrence seeks to understand how individual punishment can deter others from committing crimes. So they seek to understand that to those individuals who will be punished will be served as a way to deter those other individuals. from committing a crime. So number 3 is we have marginal deterrence seeks to reconcile how effective different types of punishment are as either specific or general deterrence. So they seeks to reconsider how effective this kind of punishment in order to deter crime and criminals. Number 4 is we have partial deterrence refers to situations in which the threat of penalty has some deterrent value even when someone engaged in illegal behavior. For example, we have a criminal simply robbing a victim instead of also causing physical harm. The effectiveness of deterrence as a criminal punishment is difficult to assess because people may follow the law for other reasons that may be challenging to track, such as religious or moral beliefs, physical incapacitations, or lack of opportunity. So number 3, we have the retribution. So, as one of the oldest forms of punishment, retribution has roots in the Judeo-Christian tradition of justice. In her book Criminal Law, Lisa M. Storm explains that retribution prevents crime by giving victims or society a certain sense of satisfaction that a defendant has been punished appropriately, reinforcing the belief that the criminal justice system is working effectively. It is to instill to the individuals in the society that the criminal justice is working out to work this effective deterrence in order to prevent criminals from committing crime. So modern examples of retribution include the widespread practices of imposing fines as well as enforcing mandatory sentencing policy to a certain offenses under the law. So those who will commit violations of the law or some offenses in today's modern, they will if this justice system will impose a fine for those who committed an offenses against the law, or they will serve a sentence to the jail. So, as an effective punishment, retribution has been criticized as being overly rigid and limited in its capacity to change societal behavior. But, however, it remains popular. Now, let's proceed to rehabilitation. So, we all know that rehabilitation is very common to us. It is to rehabilitate someone from wrongdoings and redirect them to what is good. So, rehabilitations include advice, tips, assistance, help, support, guidance of those prisoners. So a common prison policy in America up until the 1970s, rehabilitation focuses on helping criminals and prisoners overcome the barriers that led them to committing criminal acts. So it is to help prisoners to overcome these barriers on why they commit these criminal acts or the act of criminals. So these include developing occupational skills as well as resolving psychological issues such as drug addiction and aggression, explains the American. So rehabilitation is to help every individual prisoners to overcome, to develop their skills in order to have occupations, and also to help them in regards with psychological. So, psychological association, are also known as APA, consider the the opposite of retribution. The ultimate purpose of rehabilitation is to transition of offenders back into society. They help these prisoners in order to bring back these offenders into society. The APA reports that in examining massive data, individualized approaches to crime complemented with community-based approaches can prove effective in reducing offender recidivism. So now let's proceed with number 5, which is the restoration. So a radically different approach to criminal punishment is the goal of restoration. Is for the offender to make direct amends to both the victim and the community in which the crime was committed. Although a relatively new practice in modern times, the concept of restorative justice can be found in the early legal systems of Western Europe, ancient Hebrew justice, and pre-colonial African societies. So during the process of restoration, victims initiate a process in which both they and the offender meet to share feelings and concerns. The dialogue offers victims the opportunity to be heard and the offender to make amends and receive forgiveness. It is the connections of the prisoners and the offenders. It is to hear them out in their thoughts in order for the offenders to forgive them. It is what we call the restorations of someone. So restorative justice is often used in crimes involving youth offenders. So these types of criminal punishments have brought enlightenment when it comes to deterring crimes. The main purpose of these types of punishment is to instill to individuals' mind that when you commit a violation of the law or offenses against the law, you will be punished in order for you to learn, and that will serve as an eye-opener to others that we should not make a crime or